Hi guys, Olive here today to tell you about the best books that I've read so far in 2019. Out of the 50 books that I've read so far this year, I would like to tell you about 10 of them, 5 fiction and 5 nonfiction books that have really stood out to me as being exceptional. All of these are certainly candidates for my year-end list at this point. These books are ranked. I'll be oscillating back and forth between talking about nonfiction books and fiction books, starting with both books that came in at number 5, then slowly working my way up to the number 1 fiction and number 1 nonfiction book of the year so far. And I will provide my usual disclaimer that these books were not necessarily published in 2019. They're simply books that I have read in 2019. So starting with the 5th best fiction book that I've read in 2019 so far, it also happens to be the fiction book that I finished the most recently that has left quite the impression on me. That's The House of Mirth by Edith Wharton. This is, per Wharton's usual style, a novel of New York in the early 20th century that tells the story of a penniless woman chasing both wealth and status, using her beauty and social maneuvering. But as you might expect, her attempts go awry. I really want to do a separate video on this book because I have so much to say about it and its heroine, but I think that it is so adeptly written with some still piercingly relevant moral messages singing through. The more I think about this book, the more genius it seems, and if it keeps itching at me the way that it has so far, you'll be seeing that specialized video soon enough. My 5th best nonfiction book of the year so far is another one that swept me away this month. That book is called Rough Magic, Riding the World's Loneliest Horse Race by Laura Pryor Palmer. This is a memoir of the first female and also youngest ever winner of the Mongol Derby, which is a brutal, days-long horse race across Mongolia that aims to mimic Genghis Khan's postal system. In a lot of ways, this is a coming-of-age tale, only told in memoir form. It has all that flippancy of youth that you can expect from someone who tore across Mongolia on the backs of semi-wild horses at age 19. In places, it has this dreamy, childlike quality to it, but at other times you can really feel that visceral, rabid craving for freedom that teenagers love to lean into. Overall, I thought it was brilliantly written and certainly super impressive for a debut. June was a really big reading month for me, apparently, because coming in at number 4 in fiction is yet another one that I read this month. That book is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This one was very highly anticipated across nearly all of BookTube, since so many of us really loved The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, but this one has been notably less beloved in our community and beyond. But it's nearly all love coming from me because I thought this tale of clashing rock and roll stars in the 1970s was both fun and skillfully done. The interview format with which it's told is not only effective, but it's the gift that keeps on giving as the book goes on. Strong characters who are often unlikable, which is kind of the point in this case, make this not just a page turner, but also a very layered and complex read that is full of moral ambiguity. Mirroring Daisy Jones in the 4th spot, number 4 in nonfiction belongs to A Short History of Nearly Everything by Bill Bryson. I just recently spoke about my fondness for this book when I was wrapping up the 10 most popular books on my TBR project, since this is a book I read for that, and while I may not always love popular books, I sure loved this one. This hyperbolic in-title book is a mix of science and history, and in fact it's very much a history of and introduction to all of the sciences. In this book, Bryson gives brief introductions to many different branches of science, and so you'll walk away from this book having a pretty broad understanding of how each of these fields got started and what we know about them so far. Plus, this book is really funny and will keep you engaged the whole way through. Moving up the list, my 3rd best fiction book of the year so far is Once Upon a River by Diane Setterfield. This is a dark and atmospheric tale set along the River Thames in the late Victorian era. 2 unknown visitors, a man and a little girl, burst into an inn late at night on the winter solstice after there has been some kind of an accident. And while the man is identified pretty early on, the girl's identity is contested. Plus, this little girl is made all the more perplexing because she's clearly dead upon arrival at this inn, but she mysteriously comes back to life. This gothic tale is brimming with something more than faintly magical, and it's really brought to life with strong themes of storytelling and the binds that connect family. I did a full review of this one if you'd like to hear more about this book. or if you'd like to hear more about how much I adored it. Third for nonfiction is Hammerhead, The Making of a Carpenter by Nina McLaughlin. This is the memoir of a writer who quit her day job in order to become an apprentice carpenter, despite not having any prior experience. This is a really moving story all about learning, growth, and self-acceptance as Nina accompanies her mentor Mary to all of these different jobs. But the book is about so much more than just what she's making with her hands at each of these jobs. It's about what it's teaching her about life. I found it to be full of both wisdom and strength. It's completely empowering. Moving into the cream of the crop, the second best fiction book I've read so far this year is The Sparrow by Mary Doria Russell. I had heard great things about this literary science fiction novel in which humankind discovers evidence of an alien civilization on a not too distant planet. A team of individuals, including scientists, linguists, and Jesuits, travel to this planet in order to make contact, which has devastating results. If you're at all familiar with my style as a reader, you know that it's basically a requirement that any book I read get my wheels turning for me to enjoy it. And there was so much to dissect in this book. From the meaning of faith to finding beauty in the foreign, and then to a satire on the unintentional yet still detrimental impacts of missionaries. This book will challenge you as it rips the foundation out from under you. It is crushingly good. Second place in nonfiction goes to Strapless, John Singer Sargent and the Fall of Madame X by Deborah Davis. This is a history of the painting of Madame X, whose real name was Virginie Amélie Gaudreau. She was an American-born socialite in 19th century Paris. Portraitist John Singer Sargent painted her as his star was rising, but when the final work debuted at the 1884 Paris Salon, it caused a scandal due to the strap of her dress having fallen down her shoulder. This is kind of a dual biography as well as a history of this particular moment in time. We learn so much about the subject of this portrait as well as the painter, and additionally a whole other cast of characters in late 19th century Paris. It is so elegantly done, and it will positively transport you back to this lavish yet completely contradictory era. And now for the most exciting moment, my top 2 books of the year so far will be revealed, and they're actually both books that I've given their own videos here on this channel. The best fiction book I've read so far in 2019 is Mansfield Park by Jane Austen. This is arguably Jane Austen's least loved novel. It's certainly not among her more well-known novels, and I think that has a lot to do with the fact that the leading female character, Fanny Price, is rather understated. But I think that Fanny Price isn't given the credit that she's due for the integrity and strength of character that she shows. This entire book is effectively a character study and a demonstration of how going through hardship can help build a strong moral foundation within a person. Sure, this isn't the zippiest of her novels, but its messages are still delivered with the same firm hand that Austen always wrote with. As I said, I did an entire video on just this book. It's basically an impassioned defense of the character of Fanny Price. I will link that down below in case you'd like to watch it. And then my favorite nonfiction book of the year so far is Maybe You Should Talk to Someone, A Therapist, Her Therapist, and Our Lives Revealed by Lori Gottlieb. It's been a banner year for memoir in my reading so far this year, and this is the best of the bunch. It's written by a therapist who goes to see her own therapist in the wake of a very difficult event in her life. This is her experience of that process, but also a personal history of how she got to this point in her life, including how she found herself working as a therapist after years spent working in Hollywood. We're introduced to several of her patients along the way. She has different relationships with all of them, and it's really interesting to see her as both a patient and a therapist. It gives a complete look at the experience of going to therapy, and as the author is starting to learn to see herself differently, we the readers are given that opportunity to flip the mirror back on ourselves and see how much is left to learn there. This is a really beautiful book. It is full of vulnerability and raw honesty that translates it into a portrait of acceptance and hope. I did a full review of this one if you're interested in hearing more about it. I'll link it down below for you. So those are the front runners of all the books that I've read so far this year. It has been a notably good reading year for me so far, particularly in nonfiction. I cannot tell you how hard it was to narrow down my favorite nonfiction books of the year so far into just those 5. I am beyond excited to see what great books await me in the second half of the year. Please do let me know if you've read any of these books, if you've heard about any of them, or if you're now interested in reading them after hearing me talk talk about them. You can put that or any other general comments or questions you may have down in the comment section below. But if you prefer to chat somewhere other than YouTube, I am on a variety of different places on social media, and the links to all of my profiles are in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!